And Megan Fox here at PJ Media is explaining.
What's tip 4?
Well, don't trust women. I think you just touched on that with your Dancing with the Stars.
You can still love me.
I do. I love you all the time. But our First Amendment rights are huge. They are very important to me. They should be important to everyone. Don't be a public official if you don't want to be filmed, ma'am.
Megan Fox.
Yes.
Welcome to the live stream, everyone. I'm Megan Fox. I write with pjmedia.com. And it was a very late night last night. Election nights for me always are. And so I got a very slow start this morning. And I can't find my regular glasses. And so I'm stuck with my backup pair. And the glare coming off of them is driving me absolutely crazy. But I think I'll survive it. I'm going to try and survive it. So congratulations, Virginians. If you were someone who voted for Republicans, you had a very good night last night. And I'm sorry, Michael Volpe out of Chicago. It looks like the Clinton legacy will be ending with Terry McAuliffe's loss. I know the Clintons were some of your favorites, but
just Bill.
Bill.
Not as much Hillary, but no, I don't know if they're done. They have a lot of acolytes and people who work for them.
Well, McAuliffe is like the last remaining one.
McAuliffe is a big deal, but they've got tentacles everywhere, so don't count them out yet.
Hey, the New Jersey election was extremely close as well. I think they're going to call it for Murphy. That's what's happening right now. But
right, it's trending towards him, but it'll be an extremely close race, and no one expected that.
No one expected that. No. And I think that I know people in New Jersey, and they were telling this one person I know works in a bar. And so they hear a lot of things, a lot of people talking all the time. And he told me that people have turned on Murphy in the last year and a half. In a way, they blame him for shutting down the businesses. They blame him for all the loss of businesses and the over-the-top COVID restrictions, and they've just had enough. And I would really love to see Murphy get booted, but I'm not sure that's going to happen this time.
Right. The way I understand the what's left to be counted, he'll probably get over the top. But yeah, it's going to be a lot closer than anyone expected. Okay.
Well, somehow the Democrats always tend to withhold their vote count until they know. I think it's until they know how many they need. But, that's not a real popular opinion sometimes. But really, I don't care, because I'm of the opinion that I'm not voting anymore anyway, unless it's in a local election. So I really don't care. But I do like to stay up late and watch these things. I enjoyed MSNBC's coverage last night. Chuck Todd was having an absolute meltdown over Virginia, and that was fun to watch.
All right. Yeah. You were having fun at his expense. All right. You want to get started?
Should. Yeah. Let's see. Now, I did some work because we have had on this program a multitude of recusals and withdrawals since we started doing this, haven't we? So I have updated. Let's go to the wall of recusals, shall we? And it has been updated. As you can see, we have some new people arriving, and I have an announcement to make. I'm very happy about this. It's very exciting. Cynthia Buckley has taken herself off the case, the Burkhart v. Adkins case. She is no longer the reunification therapist, and this is important. As you can see, her card here is white. She's the first therapist that we've had step off a case, Mike.
Now, I sent you an email. I actually asked or suggested she should recuse herself about 2 weeks before she did.
That's right.
So I did that with Judge Nicole Zellweger way back when.
She's down here. She's the one with the horns.
Right. And that took about 3 days. So Ms. Buckley lasted a little bit longer. But look, when your call, as I mentioned to her, when your call to the police for the non-crime is made public and thousands of people know about it, really kind of have no choice at that point. So
yeah, and our wall of recusals is getting so big now. I actually counted them up. We are at 59 with withdrawals or recusals, Mike. That includes, now we've had to add the entire Eastern District where is it? Here it is. The Eastern District Court of Appeals. That was about 16 judges, between 13 and 16 judges. The 21st Circuit Court of St. Louis, that was 31 judges. And then we had all the rest of these people. So you add that up together and you've got 59 recusals and withdrawals. I think this is a good moment to reflect on all we've done, Mike. It's been quite, when did we start doing this? Like February? That's when the St. Louis story broke?
Right, but we probably didn't start till March or April, but that's correct. Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. I feel like we should have a celebratory moment here. We've put some new people on here. So we've got, why don't you tell us about Judge Yvonne Cuesta, because she's recused herself.
She was in Gabe Shapiro's case, and I don't have for certain, but not only did she recuse herself, but then Dory Foster Morales was terminated by her client. I believe, we won't put it on the wall yet, but Anastasia Garcia, who is the guardian ad litem, she may be off the case. In fact, the two, Patsy, that's Gabe's ex, and Gabe have gotten together, and I believe a deal, if it's not done, is imminent. But as I'll show you, don't feel too bad for Dory, because she made quite a lot of money before she was terminated. But Yvonne Cuesta was on the case until I think late summer.
This is Dory here.
And so I think we're going to have the trifecta when I get confirmation. The judge recused herself, the lawyer was fired, and then the guardian ad litem was removed as well.
Now you may be wondering why there's a picture of a rat here. We were unable to find a picture of Sarah Royster, so I decided to just throw in what I thought might be her spirit animal. Sarah Royster was a guardian ad litem who worked for the Children's Law Center in North Carolina. Mike,
she got embarrassed quite heavily. Paul Mengert was the attorney cross-examining her, and he did quite a job on it. As we played a few minutes, I felt it was in the running for greatest cross-examination of all time, though I don't think it'll quite go over the top of F. Lee Bailey and the work he did in the OJ trial, but still in the running. Not too bad for Mr. Mengert over. He's near Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Hey, listen, if you're mentioned with F. Lee Bailey, it's not bad. Plus, he's only getting started in his career. He may get better as he goes along, and he may have an even better cross. So shortly after that, she was removed from the case. And then I found out sometime later she was either terminated or maybe she quit, but no longer with. It's the Children's Law Center of Central North Carolina. Last week, I think her name was Kathy Stratton. She was involved with the Council for Children's Rights. Those are the two nonprofits I found in North Carolina who, while the children is in their name, they're really not benefiting the children at all.
One of the commenters says, maybe we can get all the black robe mafia and gangster ad litems all over the U.S. to recuse themselves. That is the goal. That is the goal. We would like them to lose their jobs because what they're doing to children and families in this country is a crime. And making money off of family trauma is not something that I think any of us should be supporting. Speaking of money, Mike, do you want to tell us about Dory Foster Morales?
Yes, so she is the outgoing president of the Florida Bar, and so she was taken off the case. It's Patsy Alcantar and Gabe Shapiro. Patsy, I think, terminated her. She's no longer on the case, but before then, let's just take a look at this is her bill just for the month of July, and as you can see, it's like 26 pages. She does at times charge almost $700 an hour, and I was a little off. It's only $695, sometimes $190. So sometimes she's cheap. So I'm just going to get, I think it's like the 23rd page here, and it keeps going and going.
That's
and this
quite
is
an
just
invoice.
This is just the month of July.
That's
and
God, it must be good to be Dory.
Look, no charge for review of email. That was nice of her. So
0.17, was that a 0.17, a 17th of a minute or something?
Yeah, no.
Hourly rate.
She was nice on that
0.17 of an hour.
Right. She didn't charge for that, so we keep going.
Wow, that's a big invoice. This is for 1 month.
This is for one client.
Whoa! Look at the total.
$60,000. Now, keep in mind, Gabe was supposed to be paying Dory's salary, but I got this. He appealed, and my understanding is while the appeal is going on, he's not forced to pay any new bills. And I think the appeal was going on, so I think that bill was sent to Patsy. But that's one client. She charged 60 for 1 month. Now,
For
to be
1 month,
fair,
not
I
just
got
not a whole case, 1 month.
I got some other months, and they are a lot less, though anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000
It's
for
still
one
a lot.
client. But she made $60,000, and my understanding is Patsy and Gabe will settle it either at 50-50 or right around there, which is where they started. So
Oh my God. This is
Dory,
quite a racket if you can get it.
right,
They start out with 50-50, then you take them to court, you take 60,000 or more of their dollars to get them right back to 50-50?
without her though. That's the thing. Dory just created a mess. Eventually, at some point, Gabe didn't see
Oh
his
my
kids, then he
God.
saw them supervised. Now I believe it's going to be either 50-50 or close. Now that sounds like a happy ending, but one of Gabe's kids disclosed some very serious abuse, not by mom, but someone close to mom. That's still going to be covered up. But Dory is the outgoing president of the Florida bar. I don't think she ever expected anything like this. So she has been taken down a few notches, but
Mm,
hopefully that 60,000 will keep her happy while she's licking her wounds for being taken off the case.
Jeez. Unbelievable. Okay, well, I've got some other news
Hmm.
about Evita Tolu's case. Let's see
Hmm.
if I can share
And
that
that
here.
really started it all. She sued, among others, Elaine Podlowski, James Reed, and really opened up what we know about in St. Louis County.
That's right. So Evita Tolu is getting some more local press. The St. Louis Record only took them a month to report what I broke on
Now, that
her
is
case.
the local lawyers trade journal, which I do think is important because that means a lot of lawyers, and a lot of lawyers do read that. They will see Elaine Podlowski's name. I doubt
Exactly.
as many lawyers will read um, PJ Media or my work.
Right.
So,
No, this is good, but again, let's remind the folks. Juliet Fairley is the person who wrote this, and she's doing a good job now. But when she first started writing about this case, she never even bothered to talk to Evita.
mhm,
And so I called her out on it, and I sent her an email. I asked her why she didn't talk to the source of her article, and suddenly she did call her. And then there
right,
was a good article written, and now there's another good one written. Because
right,
if you speak to Evita, you realize that her lawsuit has a lot of merit. It's extremely credible, and
mhm,
the allegations that she's making are not only credible, but they're worldwide.
mhm,
This is not just one woman saying this. What this one woman came out and did this lawsuit, and thousands of people came forward saying this is happening to me too.
right.
Um,
Many of them in St. Louis County. The other thing she did was she inspired other lawsuits like Ken Rose's that you've covered. Devin,
and look, she inspired like 5 other lawsuits. There's
and
Devin
I know
Arsenault, Kim
there's at least
Richmond.
there's at
Uh,
least another one being finalized.
yeah,
Um, and the reason that all these judges recused themselves is because one of the defendants, James Reed, was married to one of these judges who worked for the Eastern
Judge
District
Mooney.
Appeal. In fact, Avita talked about how he would brag about how Judge Mooney is his husband
Yeah,
because he's gay.
she said here, when Dr. Reed was evaluating me, he stated multiple times that he is married to a very powerful legal family in the state of Missouri, Tolu said. He told me his spouse is an appellate judge and his brother-in-law is a prominent tax lawyer. That was delivered to me in the context of Dr. Reed insulting me, calling me a liar, a drunk, an alcoholic, and a cheater. And Evita doesn't drink, and I know that's
Mhm,
true because I've spent time with her. She
mhm,
doesn't drink alcohol. So
right,
Dr. Reed was accusing her of doing things that she doesn't do and
right.
threatening her.
And he also diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder, her among many others.
Right.
And as we pointed
Which she
out,
does not have.
unless there's a very unusual cluster of people in St. Louis County, very unusual.
The world's
He,
cases are all in St. Louis County.
correct. He was misdiagnosing a lot, if not all of these folks with borderline personality disorder. Like last week, we talked about a case where they did histrionics. Um,
Right.
they just come up with names and you can just put the name in. They're basically describing the same thing, which is that you're alienating the kids or whatever you're doing, you're crazy. And they just use a bunch of these bogus terms, not bogus, histrionics may be real, but So is borderline personality
Well,
disorder. But
histrionics, by the way, is the most misogynistic thing you can say to about a woman. It's like we're living in the 1800s that they're still bringing up histrionics. It's actually not a thing. I mean, hysterical is hysterical even a scientific term anymore? I mean, maybe there's certain conditions like hysterical blindness and some other things that exist, but just histrionics in general, I don't think so. I think that's been long ago debunked.
Correct.
They used to put women in jail for that. They used to put women in mental asylums for being hysterical.
Okay, let me get the next update is out of England. You and I have talked about how little there is how little transparency there is in British courts. In fact, they have a law that says that unless the judge allows you cannot talk about any details of the case. That may be changing. This is, I don't know who this guy is, Sir Andrew McFarlane, but he wants to open up the family courts, president of the family division. So he's obviously very important. Open for
well,
reporting.
he's in charge of the family division, and now he's saying he wants more transparency.
Right. Yeah, now is the time for that balance to change. So he wants more transparency. If you thought Google, if you thought YouTube was cool already, wait till you hear out of control judges with cool British accents being put on YouTube. And so I think that's what's coming next. And look, we talked to Liz Perkins, and she was still able to do it. But in England, she's got to talk about cases without talking about the specifics of the case. And somehow she's able to get it out.
Which is so insane. We need to get her back on to talk about this, actually. I'd love to hear her thoughts on what's going on. And I'm sure she's had something to do with it. I mean, she and her colleagues have been working very hard to bring attention to the fact that family courts are so closed down. We've talked to Samantha Baldwin, and she's not even allowed to mention her own ex-husband's name. That's how crazy it is in England. You're not allowed to, I don't think she's allowed to say her children's names either. So, I mean,
she uses initials. In fact, in the book, she changes their names. And she told me the only reason she was able to talk about details because they were already put out there by the judge and others. So she was just repeating what others have said. And her case is pretty unique in that way. But I think that's going to change, hopefully. I don't know the dynamics, him saying it. I don't know what that means as far as changing the law. And I know that I think they said it was a 60-year-old law that was behind this, that unless the judge approves it, you can't talk about any specifics of the case. And I think Grant Wyeth said something similar in Australia as well. So as I said, whatever problems we have, we do leave the world in terms of transparency for family court. But I think
we still need more.
We
need body cams on judges. We need cameras in every courtroom. I like that he said here that open justice is a fundamental right, and there is a strong public interest in more openness. Well, yeah, there is. And our governments in these Western countries where we're supposed to be living in democracies, where we value freedom, should not be gagging its citizens and telling them what they can and cannot say or can and cannot talk about. And why would our systems of government, the judicial branch, be so secretive? It doesn't make any sense, other than they're trying to hide something they don't want the public to see. And they always use the privacy of the children. And I noticed he said here, the need for anonymity is particularly important in a world where information can be shared quickly on social media. That's true. And if there were some people who were out to hurt children or hurt your family or whatever, maybe they could do that. But I think the interest of fairness overrides any interest of privacy.
Right. Like openness, free, open courtrooms, there is no perfect system. So you may have incidents where kids are bullied as a result of the things that come out of the courtroom. But
they should just not use children's names in court. They should use initials,
or
they should use pseudonyms.
There's ways to protect that, but the concept of open courtrooms is so critical.
To freedom.
Whatever problems you may have, it's still much better than the way they do it in England. I think they're totally waking up to that. So we'll keep following that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, what else you got?
So The next thing I wanted to talk about Ryland's Law. We've done a lot in North Carolina. So there's a new law that we'll talk, well, I might even be
Is
able to
it
get
Ryan's Law or Rylan? I think I spelled it
Ryland's
wrong.
Law.
Oh,
Right,
I
you may have
spelled it
spelled
wrong.
it wrong. So this was
Sorry.
passed in 2017. I want to show you what I found about it. So number one, let me get this up. This talks about what the inspiration for the law was. So I think it was a little boy who got
Oh,
killed, Rylan Odd, and what happened was I think his mom had some problems. He was put into DSS custody. He was eventually put back into his mom's care, and the social workers failed to follow up. They didn't do any in-home visits, and mom killed the
oh
son.
God.
And so as a result of this law, there's an emphasis on in-home services. And I think it's going to be misused. But so before that, I asked Victor Eisler, Big Vic, about in-home services. So here is Big Vic explain what is in-home services.
All right, hold on. Get that up there.
Service provision for families that have been identified through a case decision through any local department of social services with the ability to address moderate to high risk factors as it relates to abuse or neglect. And what that means, based on the safety plan and the strength of needs that are based on North Carolina policy, the agency can make the decision to ask the family to engage in in-home services, which is intensive and supportive case management for anywhere between 6 to 9 or 12 months.
Right.
And so
So that sounds good. So basically, they show up in your home. They're working with you. So I think this Ryland's Law will abuse in-home services, and so I just wanted to show you this.
What does it say? What does the language say in the law?
I don't remember the specific language, but there's an emphasis on in-home services. Let me get this up.
I think what you sent me said that the language said that the services would be paid by the state. But in our experience, we have not seen that. We've seen parents being billed for these services. And then the
So
state
here-
is also getting money from the feds to pay for the services. So they're double dipping.
This comes up, right?
Yeah.
Family First Act, that's the bill passed under Donald Trump on the federal level.
Right.
And then Ryland's Law is on the state level. So right here, preventive and in-home services that provide struggling families with needed support and treatment to prevent removal of children from the home, and they go on. And the Family First Act offers states the opportunity to use federal funds to implement prevention services such as mental health, substance abuse, and parenting services to prevent children from being removed from their homes.
If they actually did that, that would be wonderful. That's more of what we need. We need more of, help these families instead of take their kids away.
Right.
But that's not what happens. Social
Right.
services uses these things as a weapon. They come in and they say, you have to take a parenting class. And then you try and take the parenting class, and then something goes wrong. And suddenly it's, well, you weren't cooperative, so we're taking your kids.
That's correct. But basically the Family First Act provides a piggy bank for all of these in-home services. So the state's not going to pay for it. In fact, they're probably making money on it. It probably works very similar to Title IV B&E. The other thing is, none of this is transparent. Big Vic wouldn't tell me how many in-home services there are. I bet you've seen an explosion since 2017 when this law was passed of in-home services, because that's what the law is emphasizing. So everybody wants to put people in in-home services, whether they need them or not.
Whether they need it or not. Yeah,
because
that's a
they're
problem.
because they're getting a lot of money for it.
I was
there's an
hopeful
emphasis
about
on
this law because it did address some of the issues that were that plague CPS, as far as them being so quick to remove children from homes, and instead it put the emphasis on keeping the child in the home as long as possible. And so this is the thing about these laws. I mean, you go one way and it doesn't work. You go the other way and it still doesn't work. So what the hell are we supposed to do?
You're almost always creating these perverse incentives. I think what this law does is it creates a perverse incentive to hoist in-home services on people because you're getting money for it. There's an emphasis on it. Maybe
it would be better to write laws that say, if you get caught forcing families to take services they don't need or removing children unlawfully, you're going to a mandatory 20-year jail sentence. period. Maybe that would be more
Or
effective.
get rid of some of the money, get rid of some of the services. But all of these laws, they hoist services, and they're almost always in response to these kinds of cases like Riley Knott, where somebody dies, somebody was abused, and then everybody gets riled up and they say, we need more, and we don't really need more. And so I think what you'll see throughout North Carolina is in-home services being hoisted on people because somebody's making money on it.
Yeah, I don't like it. And I don't like any of it. Especially I don't like the attaching incentives to everything. Why must
Mhm.
that happen? Why
Right,
must there be as incentives attached to everything? That I don't understand.
right. And as you can see, there are right there through the federal government, because the federal government is providing you funds for a bevy of these services that are going to be in the basket of in-home services. And so essentially what will happen is the caseworker is going to try to find something that will make you eligible, as Big Vic said, either moderate to high risk. So if you have no problems, they're going to find it something to make it moderate. And then boom, you have in-home services and then parenting classes and all these other things. And I think they're mostly being done to get the federal funds.
Mm-hmm. All right, I want to share with the audience who's a couple people I know I get contacted every day, people who want help. I just want to share my Substack with you guys. It's meganfox.substack.com. Before you do reach out for help, there's some very good information in here for you to read and to learn. I have written several how-tos as far as how to put your information together. Here's one here: how to get media attention.
Mhm.
How to organize your case file on Google, how to not make mistakes when you're approaching the press. So there's some good things in here that you guys, if you're interested in getting some help on your case, you should go to my Substack, and I will drop the link in the chat for you guys. And that way you will be able to access that quickly. So always check that out first and read through that before you decide to reach out, because Mike and I are not going to read a 5-page essay about what's gone on in your case. We can't.
Right,
We don't have time.
right. Also, stop asking me for legal advice.
Right. We're not
And
lawyers.
right, and lawyer referrals. I
Yeah.
don't know any good lawyers, so stop asking me if I do.
Hey,
So,
I actually do know some good lawyers, but they are unfortunately not family court lawyers. We
right,
did interview the civil rights attorney, who might be my new favorite
right,
lawyer.
right,
But yeah, none of the lawyers I know are family court lawyers. I know some good civil rights attorneys.
right.
And so if you have a civil rights case that you need in California to do in California, you should
Mhm.
see Sean McMillan.
Mhm.
Um,
And John Bryan in West
and
Virginia.
John Bryan in West Virginia. But other than that,
Right,
you're out of luck with us, with
right.
lawyers.
So don't ask me that. And yeah, people get long-winded. They ask me for advice. That's another thing.
Yeah, we can't
I
give
don't.
legal advice. Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
legal or otherwise. How do I get my kids back? I don't hire a lawyer. What do you mean? How do I get my kids
That's
back?
always what I tell people, is to please get a good lawyer. And I know that's really hard. It's really
Mhm,
hard to find a good lawyer, but I think that we should maybe that's a good article for my next Substack. I'm going to make myself a note: how to vet a lawyer.
mhm,
I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna
mhm.
help you guys how to vet a lawyer, because there
Right.
are things you can do to make sure that your lawyer is going to help you and not hurt you. For one, if a lawyer isn't willing to put in writing what they will do for the retainer they are asking, and
Mhm.
agree to do it for that amount, you don't want that lawyer. So if they're
Right.
asking for $3,000, you need to say to them, what are you going to give me for $3,000? How many motions are you going to file? Which ones are we going to do? And when will they be done? And get it in writing. And a lawyer who isn't willing to do that is not a lawyer you need to give $3,000 to.
I agree. And ironically, there's a very misogynistic book called "Screw the Bitch," but in one section they give very good advice on hiring the right lawyer. And one of the things and I'm sure it's a man who wrote it, said is try to go to court and see how they perform in court if you can.
Oh,
And
yeah.
with YouTube and others, you don't even have to go to court. Just see if their work in court is available somewhere. But you absolutely want to see them actually do their work in court if possible.
I would say talk
Among
to other clients as well.
Mhm,
Find other clients in similar situations. Find out, who can you talk to that they've actually worked with before.
mhm. Okay, do we have our guest yet?
Yes, Alicia, she's in the green room, but I don't see her camera on. So Alicia, you probably want to turn if you want to use your camera. Otherwise, let's see. There's
We
a
don't
private
need
chat,
it.
so let me see.
So
She's not ready yet right now. She'll be ready shortly.
okay, so let me set it up. Alicia was good friends with Libby Leonard. Libby was recently murdered. Her children's babysitter, Lavrius Watson, has been arrested. He confessed. He's, I'll say, 99.99% certain the person who actually physically killed her. Though Alicia and others believe that this happened in Pennsylvania. And I should mention, it happened in Luzerne County, which is where Kids for Cash happened.
Oh yeah, that's
It's
right.
where Joe Marcy's case happened, which
Where the
is
judge was putting the kids in the juvenile detention
two
for money.
judges.
Two
And
judges. Oh my
and
God.
they were convicted under RICO. So that was a criminal enterprise, according to a jury of 12 people. Joe Marcy, we interviewed Lindy Morelli. He's wrongfully convicted. There's another smaller scandal called Custody for Cash, where a guardian ad litem, or maybe more, took money for favorable guardian ad litem reports. And recently, the head of their Department of Social Services is going to jail, or at least convicted of a crime for, I think, doing like mislabeling reports. So it's a very corrupt county, and then we'll see if there's more corruption in this case. But Alicia knows Libby. Alicia also has a very crazy story that part of it's in North Carolina, part of it's in Oklahoma. Cops once showed up with no warrants. And she's got quite the story to tell, but we'll ask her about Libby first. And
okay, well, she's not quite ready yet. So in the meantime, why don't I remind folks about, I'm going to give you a little commercial for PJ Media. How about that? We we have been silenced and censored on Twitter. They've taken our account down because one of our writers refuses to acknowledge that the transgender health and human services person that used to be from Pennsylvania. What was her name? Rachel something.
Rachel Levine.
Rachel Levine. Yes. He
Right.
wrote an article saying that Rachel Levine is in fact not the first woman 4-star general because she's not a woman. And
And I think there was actually another woman who was a 4-star general.
There was. And so that was a totally illegitimate, claim in the first place. So that's unfortunate. But anyway, we've been locked out of Twitter. And I just wanted to bring your attention to our VIP subscriber service. Whether you are, you don't have to be conservative to like what we do here, because a lot of what we do, I do my investigative work here, which is not political. And some of us are libertarians, some of us are conservatives, but you won't find any Democrats here. That's true. But under our VIP subscribership service, if you do, if you'd like to subscribe, it helps us to stay off those social media companies so that we don't have to bow to them and do what they want us to do and be censored by them. And so if you go on to pjmedia.com and you click on VIP, you can sign up with my promo code FOX for a discount. And there's all kinds of things. My podcast is there. There's all kinds of podcasts and live chats. There's all sorts of things. There's comedy streams. There's a lot of good stuff. So I would absolutely suggest that you guys do that if you're interested, if that's something you like. And I think Alicia is ready. There she is. Alicia, welcome to the program. Ooh, I hear a pretty bad echo. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix that. I'll turn down your volume.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, that was me. I was on my phone before. I was trying to switch over to the computer.
All right. Well, you sound good now.
Okay.
Welcome.
So, Alicia, let's start with Libby. You knew her pretty well, so tell us a little bit about Libby and her case, and also this might be too many questions at once. I know you contacted authorities, so tell us what you contacted authorities about regarding her case. I mean, and did they take you seriously, or how did they respond to the information you wanted to give them?
Yeah. So I met Libby via our group that we created collectively called the Safe Parents Movement. And it came from basically me being in all the Facebook domestic violence groups. And, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I've been experiencing domestic violence since 2012. And I just was able to get out of the relationship last year, and going through this custody fight with the abuser. Uh, so inside of the
We losing her?
She froze for a minute there. Yeah. Alicia, your camera froze on us. I'm not sure if your Wi-Fi is going out but we lost you there. Is she coming back?
Is it still frozen?
Nope.
No,
Now we can hear you. Go
All right,
ahead.
so keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So I was seeing a lot, I was using those groups for support and seeing a lot that people were talking about this custody thing that I was going through with.
I think we keep losing her.
All right, let's try this,
Because-
Alicia. Let's turn your
Let me
camera
see if I
off.
can move.
I think if you just turn your camera off, your Wi-Fi will
I'm gonna try
probably
to change
stream
my net.
faster. Sometimes cameras take up a lot of broadband. So if you turn your camera off and just do audio, it should solve the problem.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Let's see if this works.
I did change my Wi-Fi. I went to another network, so if that
Okay,
doesn't
maybe
work,
that
then
will
I
work.
will, and then I'll take
Okay,
off my
sounds
camera.
good.
Okay, so I was seeing this a lot, and I know this to be a very dangerous situation because you're expecting, I mean, the courts to protect you. You're expecting the police to at least provide that level of protection when there's this, you're a female, there's this man who's after you, and he's already hurt you. And so he will. And then when you go to the authorities, they don't believe you or they are on his side. And it's so dangerous. It's so life threatening. And, and it's very dangerous for the children as well. And so I was seeing this a lot. And so I messaged in a lot of the groups uh, if you are going through this court ordered custody issue with your abuser, send me a message so we can get in a chat and talk about this very serious issue and see if we can get a reporter on it. And within 6 hours, I had 30 people in a chat.
Wow.
This is a serious issue, and
And Libby was one of them.
yes, Libby was one of them, and they're not going to. Everybody is dangerous. The abuser is stalking you. He's looking at your page. He knows like if you're posting videos or talking about the issue, and so a lot of people won't talk. There's many people out there who will not talk about it, and Libby was actually she inspired me to speak out when I saw her video when she first started speaking out, and you could tell she was just a regular mom, but she was reaching out for help, and she knew that she had to use whatever means or avenue that she had available in order to be able to reach people or to share what was going on with her. And she really inspired me. And so the people who are there, they like the people who are as far as are ready to talk are the ones who like come to the top. So we had like 6 people who were actually um I would say uh we 6 were more knowledgeable of the court system. We had like more knowledge of the legal system and really how things work. Um, and so we were doing Zoom calls, talking every day, and it's so emotional because every day something's unfolding. Every day somebody's, court case is changing and or they're not seeing their kids or something's happened to the children, and really it's about every day you're waiting for something to happen to the children, and it's just
It's terrifying.
yeah, it is terrifying. And
Now, at the end of her life, she felt like the court case had really gone against her. What was happening in the last few weeks?
yeah, so I wanted to say we got the name of the group from her because she was
Mhm.
calling herself the safe parent. And so that kind of came from her, the safe parents movement. Um, and yeah, so she had been going through this issue with her daughter had, or there was information that the kids were being molested by the father, and the court was still ordering these overnights, and it was very distressing for the children. And
Mm.
so we really admired her in the group because most of us had already lost our children to the abuser, and she was still fighting and able to hold on to her children, and she was fighting against this every other weekend overnights. And so we really admired her strength. And I mean, you could see it um, based on the dynamics of the people in the group. She really had it together as far as the fight, and she seemed to be more knowledgeable than the rest of us about things. And we really went to her, and she was able to give us advice, and we listened to her, and she just had more knowledge than we did. But yeah, so she had maybe a month before this happened, or maybe a month and a half, she had won. She got a victory, and we were all happy and celebrating because she was able to get the overnight stopped with her daughter. She'd first gotten them stopped with her son, as per the therapist, being able to say that they didn't recommend it. He tried to commit suicide at one point, based off
This is
of
her son. Her son
yeah,
tried to
based
commit suicide.
yeah, based off his father.
Mm.
Um, and that wasn't too long ago. And he said he had a plan, and so she had taken him to the hospital. They were in the hospital for a while, and then she was finally able to get it stopped for her daughter, and that was such a victory. Um, we had talked, like, we when we get on the phone, we just talk forever. Like, we talk till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, just because it's such a major issue, and it's like it's no stopping. You have to figure it out, and you have to fix it immediately. And we just all, like, our stories are so long and complex, but she she ended up getting it stopped, and that she had gotten the overnight stop for maybe about 3 weeks. And then the week that this happened, or I guess it was the last time I talked to her was on the 16th of um, October.
Mhm.
Excuse me, I'm under the weather. Um, I forget which day that this happened. Uh,
Well, go
I have
ahead.
to look back.
Mid October.
Right,
Same
and she was saying that they had reordered. I guess there was things with her attorney. Um, he was he was disbarred, but he was still practicing, and
Can you do that if you've been disbarred,
Not
Mike? Can
legally.
you
Not
can you
legally.
still practice?
Not
I've never
legally.
heard of. I thought
Yeah.
disbarment meant you can't practice anymore.
Right. Not legally. Not legally. So she was
right,
one of many who had an attorney who wasn't really working very good on her
right,
behalf in
yeah,
family court. Am I right?
yeah, yeah. The attorneys don't work for us. It's a scheme that they're running, and they're all a part of it. Inside of these situations, I'd
Okay,
probably
so
say,
now you called.
right.
I think it was the Pennsylvania State Troopers because you believe that they should investigate her ex. And so
Right.
why do you think they should? And then what was their reaction?
Yeah, so uh, at like this happening was so sudden and so surprising, and um it was, I mean, just unreal. And uh I was on the phone with another of our group members, and she told me, she's like, "What is this?" We were on the phone, and she got a message that said, someone said something, "Rest in peace, Libby Leonard," and she's like, "What is this?" And she just like start bawling, and she's like, "What are they talking about?" And then we just started searching, and that whole day, we finally came across a news story, and it's like, what? This is what? This is nothing like. Are you serious? This is like nowhere close. Like what they're putting out in the news about what happened is nowhere close to Libby. And I apologize. I've been
It's
so
okay.
under
If
the
you need to
weather.
get a drink, we'll wait
Yeah,
for
let me
you.
get
It's
some
okay.
water. Give me one sec. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
All right. So, yeah, I think that Alicia talked to her just a few days before her murder. And as I said, most of the people who knew her either didn't know Lavrius Watson at all, or knew of him a little bit. And one other thing, her ex was not supposed to have her address, and she said recently, right before her death, that he had gotten it. So this part is speculation, but it's entirely possible that one reason why Watson was there was because she was afraid to be home alone. And if that's the case, that's really tragically ironic, that he may have been there because she felt like she needed protection from her ex, and the protection wound up killing her. Okay, so go ahead. And so you called over, I think it's the Pennsylvania State Troopers. What information do you want to give them, and what was their response? And then let's get into your story.
Right. Yeah, I did want to agree with what you were just saying, because I have done that. Like having someone around who may not be the best person to be around just for the protection, because you talk about domestic violence and that's like a word or a couple of words, but really it's like life or death. And like, do you want to lose your life? And what are you willing to do to save your life? Because this person is attacking you. And so I wouldn't see it being far fetched at all for her to have that person there for a level of protection. Um, but yeah, so once we saw the news story, it's like, no, you know who she's scared of. You know who she's been fighting to protect her life and her children's lives for the last 18 months. And then this person, what I called and said to the investigators, like, who this person, okay, so he said he had an adverse reaction. He's a murderer. So so you're gonna take what the murderer said as his alibi and put that all over the news? Like what person in their right mind would first of all do something like that to say they had an adverse reaction? So I picked up a knife and stabbed someone 5 times. Like who does, like that doesn't even make sense. And then he calls and says someone was killed, and then he stays there and waits to be arrested. Like, I mean, and this is what they're going off of 100%, as if a murderer's word is golden, you know? And that's basically what I said to them. Like, I mean,
And you wanted
Did you
them to
tell
look at
them
to look
about
at Justin?
did you tell them about her domestic abuse problem
yes, yeah, I told them
and that
about
she was
her.
scared?
Yeah, I told them about our group, and
And what was their response?
well, but when I first called, I'm like talking about I wanted to share about the case, and he's asking me my name and everything, and then I'm like, well, I just have some information that I want to share, and he's like, well, if this is about her husband, he's not involved, and I didn't mention him at all, so how is he?
They seem to know. They're very certain, it seems, that her ex-husband was not involved. And that's Justin Leonard is his name.
Right, without me
Uh,
even saying that's what I was calling about,
and we should
so
say he was convicted of strangling her, among other allegations, but he was convicted of strangling her. And she described it last week. We played it where he gets on top of her,
Right.
starts strangling her, and only her son's voice is what woke her up.
right,
So they're definitely not looking at Justin. And they seem to be okay with this. The pot brownie or pot cookie, whatever, the pot made me do it.
I've never heard of anything like
No,
this.
this is
Have we
straight out of
ever
Reefer Madness.
Reefer Madness?
Stole
Yes.
this
Have we
movie out of the
ever had a
30s.
case where someone was
No, it would have to be
found to have
laced.
gone crazy,
Would
murderous,
have to,
homicidal on
it would
weed?
have to be
No.
laced with something that would make you do
PCP
it. Right,
or
yeah. It
fentanyl or
wouldn't. It
something.
wouldn't be marijuana.
Crack.
Right.
It-
It's
wha-
totally ludicrous. Now let's get
Right,
into your story.
exactly. Yeah, I think, I think it's political
Mhm.
because there's legislation that came out that same week about them about legalizing marijuana
Marijuana.
there.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so sure.
Well,
One of my
let's get.
neighbors heard about this through she stays in tax. We're in Oklahoma, they're in Pennsylvania. She
Mhm,
stays like up on cannabis news because they're starting a farm, and
mhm,
she heard about that through the idea through like cannabis news, and
mhm,
that it caused an adverse reaction and a woman to be murdered. Not
mhm.
knowing any of the other. So
Right.
That's
definitely, it's
pure
gone through the
propaganda right
grapevine.
there.
It
Yeah, it's gone
absolutely
through the
is.
grapevine.
And they're just, look, they don't need a motive. The guy's confessed. So he's going to jail
Right.
for
They
life,
don't need a
regardless of
motive.
what the motive
That's
is. But you really want to know. And the idea that the pot brownie made him do it, or cookie, or whatever that he claims he ate, I think is ludicrous. Let's get into your story.
Hmm.
I don't remember if it started in North Carolina, but there's parts of it in North Carolina, parts of it in Oklahoma. And just start at the beginning. We've got some time, and
Okay.
explain what happened. Because I think at one point a bunch of cops showed up to your house, took your
Mhm.
kids,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of very crazy things that happen to you as well.
Right, right. So right, along with the domestic violence, I had fled him, and we were staying in Oklahoma. He Because of him, my mother had taken my two oldest sons, and she's also narcissistic. Um, but I have seven children, and she took my two teenagers, and she had them for 2 years. She trespassed me from her house, was how she was able to keep them, and she was basically using him as her reasoning for being able to do so. And it was not to my consent. I didn't feel she was any better. But I wasn't able to get them for 2 years. I'd hired attorneys in Oklahoma and North Carolina. They both denied jurisdiction, and finally, well, so I left him in June of 2020, and I moved back to North Carolina to continue this battle. I'm a very passionate mother. I'm very passionate about my children. And so it's like a never ending. I hadn't been able to work or do anything since she took them. It's like every day getting my children into, because it's really about their future for me. I know, that's where the attack is. It's to, take away the support for them in the long term. And we moved back to North Carolina, and we had purchased a property, and it's a very beautiful property. Me and the rest of the children, and my partner at this time, which I would definitely say similar situation as far as it being more uh, it felt safer to have someone around, you know, because of what I've been going through. And moving like purchasing this property, like we're very nature oriented, so we camp all the time. Like we've been camping, that's what we do. So we purchased this property. When I left him, I had our tent, and that's all I really had is our tent and like two pairs of clothes, and we left everything behind. And so when we purchased our property, we would camp on our property while we're clearing it every day. It's an acre. It's very beautiful. It has 100-year-old pine trees, wild growing muscadines, and it's just really a place to be in the middle of nowhere, away from him and his ability to find us. And but being able to heal in nature, and just enjoy ourselves, and working to clear our property. And so it was really awesome. And I wanted to be able to show my children that they can wake up every day, and that there's not going to be drama, there's not going to be arguing, there's not going to be
mm,
fighting. You can wake up for a week, a month, and because they were born into it. And so I wanted them to know that's not what life is. Life is beautiful. And it was great. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. And we had purchased like a pre-built cabin, and so like we stay in hotels a lot, but we'd also camp on our property when it was nice. And um and my he was 16 at the time. He came back in October on his own, Um, and he
October
was,
of 2020.
yeah, and he was doing great. He was boxing every day. His life was boxing, and he does martial arts. I figure that to be a level of protection. He's the oldest of seven, and so he feels like from what he's seen and what he's been through that, he needs to be able to protect. So he does like five different types of martial arts. But so he came back, and then everything was beautiful, but the only missing piece was my 14-year-old. And I didn't feel that he was able to stand up to her the way that my 16-year-old was. My 16-year-old is like meditative, he's spiritual, he's grounded, so he can say, well, I want to go see my mom, I want to see my siblings. But my 14-year-old is Fortnite head, so he's not really there. So November 30th, I was able to use the sheriff's department and I had called the sheriff's department here about 20 times over the last 2 years trying to get my kids from her. But this time he was able to let her know, he's not your kid, you don't have custody, you have to turn him over to his mother. And so finally, November 30th, I had all of my children together. And is that me?
No, it's,
Oh, okay.
I think it's my microphone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And so right, while we were driving away, she was calling CPS and alleging that we didn't have heat or
What county?
electricity.
What county is this in?
She lives in Wake County, and we
Mhm.
were in Moore County.
What county CPS did she call?
She called a Moore County CPS, and
Okay,
she'd
so
never been to our property.
Mhm.
I think maybe she's getting her information from my grandfather, who knew that or he had given us a generator, and
Mhm.
so I think that's probably the extent of what she knew. But she made these allegations: no heat or electricity, and they came on December 1st, and so that's the next day. And they came in around 10 p.m. at night, and we're camping, so 10 at night is like way past dark and bedtime, but they were standing at the top of our no trespassing sign, and the worker, like, they had 10 cops. She had 10 cops with her the first time she came, and she's
And these are Moore
yelling.
County
Moore
sheriffs?
County sheriffs, yes, I think it was a Moore County Sheriff and Vass Police Department. This is in the city of Vass.
Mhm.
So the city police and the sheriff's department, because the chief of police was there. Because we knew the chief of police. He'd been over there before checking on us and stuff. And
How old was your youngest child at the time?
he was two. He was one at the time, and he was nursing. And then I had a 3-year-old, and then 6, 7, and I'm trying to think at the time because they've all had birthdays since then. I guess there were 6, 7, and 9 at the time, and then my 14 and 16-year-old, and then my partner's son was there as well. He's 16 too, so we had 8 children, and so she's yelling at me. It was just the most terrible thing. What I had been through, she had no understanding or knowledge of what we had been through what I had been through over the last 2 years, trying to get my children from this woman and this victory that we finally had. And she just came accusing us, yelling at us, already thinking we're guilty, demanding to come inside and see our heater. And we're just like, okay, well, if you come inside to see the heater, is that it? She's like, no, this is 45
Was
day
this after you
investigation.
had your pre-built cabin put up?
Yeah.
Okay, so you
Right.
you weren't in tents, you were in a cabin.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And you
It
didn't
raises some
have
interesting questions, though, about how people live. I mean, this is in what state were you in?
This is in North Carolina.
In December? What's the temperature in North
Uh,
Carolina in December? What
it
was it
was
like that night?
probably maybe 40 degrees, but we had a
Uh-huh.
really nice heater, like a propane, like a Mr.
you
Heater,
didn't
the
have
new
any
heater.
CPS involvement before
No,
this. So
no,
and this woman, the caseworker, you never met her before, you knew who she was.
no, I didn't know any of these people.
So
It's just interesting how, like, CPS feels that they can tell people how to live. And
Right.
if you are, I know a lot of people who are homesteaders,
Mhm.
and people who go to Alaska and they live out very rough,
Mhm.
and because
Yep.
that's what they value,
Right.
and that's how they
Right.
want to live.
Right.
And it's
Mhm.
interesting that some people are allowed to do that and other
Other
people
people.
are not.
Right. I think it's more believable, probably because we're black, that it's more of a poverty thing that's happening than
Right.
what we're
Right.
actually doing, which is that we
Doesn't look
chose.
based on your background like you're in poverty right
Right.
Right.
away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so what
Instead of
happened?
being
So
someone who is a survivalist or someone who is a
Yeah.
right.
homesteader
So
or wants
what
to live
happened?
close to the
Keep
land.
keep going. What happened next?
Yeah. Yeah. And so she yelled at me. I didn't like her attitude. I told her I wanted a hearing, and so uh, they left, and basically they came back the next day around 4 p.m. Well, the chief of police stayed there until like 1 a.m. trying to uh, work it out somehow. He like took pictures. He had us take pictures of the heater, and then he emailed them to them. And he's like, I don't know why they're so hell bent on trying to get down there,
Interesting.
and he's like didn't understand why they weren't listening to him when
Hmm.
he's the chief of police, you know,
Hmm.
and
Tough lesson for him that day.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
He has no power where they're concerned.
yeah, I think he was begging us to let them on to our property, so I think he knew what they would do.
I'm sure he did. I'm
Hmm.
sure he did.
So
He's seen it before.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think so. We didn't know, but
They're
Hmm.
vindictive.
yeah,
So
they
what
are.
happened? What
So
happened
they
that night?
so they came back the next day at 4 p.m. This time they had 20 officers. They had M16, had three M16 assault rifles.
What?
Um, yeah, they immediately arrested my partner and took him away immediately.
What did they
Um,
arrest him for?
his charge was resisting arrest.
Okay.
And it's like, what is the arrest for that he's resisting?
Hmm.
And yeah, so after they got him out of the way, they came down with me and the children with
Mm.
their M16s and this another worker and a male worker this time.
Hmm.
And this part is on video. And I had asked what's their statute
Hmm.
the prior day, and the workers don't know the statute number. None of
Hmm.
them. They can't tell you it's 7B in North
Hmm.
Carolina. Just simply that they can't say it's 7B. They have to
Hmm.
call their supervisor for the
Hmm.
supervisor to tell you the statute number. So I had to get in touch with the supervisor and get the statute number the prior or the earlier that day or that prior day, and so I was able to read the statute before they got there.
Hmm.
And so when they got there, I'm like, well, you have an ex parte order. This is what that says. Basically, you can come and do the minimal check to make sure the kids are not in immediate danger, and then we have a hearing.
Hmm.
And so she's trying to do an assessment at the time, and keeps talking about, well, part of cooperating with us is, and like, who said anything about cooperating? You're supposed, and like that.
You have no obligation to cooperate with the United States
Hmm.
government when they're
Hmm.
pointing an
Doing this.
M16 in your face.
Exactly.
I mean, you
Yeah.
need to cooperate at that point, I guess, unless you want to get
Hmm.
shot, but
Right.
Now,
geez.
your kids were taken that night, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. They had those 20 officers. They had one female, and
Hmm.
she pulled me aside and she's like, please just do what they say. She's like,
Hmm.
they take kids from people like us who are trying to give our kids values when we don't do what they say. And
Hmm.
I'm like, you're the police. If that's what you think, you need to arrest them right now. Like, what in
Arrest
the world?
her.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Turn your
Right.
gun on her because that sounds
So they took
nuts.
your kids.
Yeah.
What happened
Yeah.
next?
So she decided, I'm taking custody of your children. I'm sure she already knew. They were talking about my mother the whole time. That
Hmm.
worker the night before was talking about my mother. And then the worker the next day was talking about my mother. And so, there was a scheme. They conspired to kidnap my children and take them to my mother. They conspired with my mother.
So they
And
took them right back to your mother.
yeah, they bypassed my placement. It's like, how do you even know her? They're telling me it's an anonymous call. It's like, how
Hmm.
do you even know my mother then if it's an
Hmm.
anonymous, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
And this thing moved to Oklahoma at some point as well.
yeah, yeah. So they took them to her. They were there for 7 days. Um, my one interesting thing, and when they were there, that my son was showing me that they had bed bugs, and I'm leaving out a lot. Like the worker stole my keys and my purse, so they had my kids, my keys, my purse, my man. I'm
Hmm.
there at the fetal position on the floor, I've never felt so vulnerable in my life as
Mm-hmm.
that night. But I was able to get him out, or his mom was able to, because they had my money and everything. But his mom was able to bond him out that night, so that was
So
good.
what's the status
But
of your kids now? We're running out of time
yeah,
here. So
okay, yeah, it's a long story. I'll try to shorten it. So yeah, so they had him for 7 days, and at our hearing, well, I had filed a motion to dismiss with them, but they didn't want to hear it because the court-appointed lawyers who we didn't agree to weren't there to say they weren't on the case. So we had to wait the 7 days, and we were able to get rid of those lawyers. I would never suggest anyone have a court-appointed lawyer for this type of case. You 10,000 times better arguing your own case than to have a court appointed. And so we argued. It was like a 3 or 4 hour trial, and the order was dissolved. It really did come to a thing about homesteading and who has the right to say
right.
how you live or whatever.
That's
But
right.
you still lost your kids, right?
So the case was dissolved. I was able to go get my children after court, but my mother told my abuser about everything. He was there at court, and after court, he was like, "Are you asking them if he can go get the kids?" And they were like, "No, we got them from her. We have to give them back to her." And so he basically beat me to my mother's house, worked with her because I found their text thread afterward where he was giving her money the whole time. And he took his children, who are the 5 little ones, from her and immediately brought them to Oklahoma after court. The court order said the children were to be returned to me. It had his name as the father, but
Did they go after
said,
him for kidnapping?
no, they have not as of yet.
Now, if you had done that and the order
Right.
had been for them to go to him, there'd be an FBI manhunt for you crossing state lines. I've
Exactly.
seen it happen before. How does he
Exactly.
get away with that? That's
Exactly. And I'm still
What
trying to
is
get them
what
to
what
write
are
a
the
report, and
what
they
what are,
won't.
what
They
are the
won't even write a
authorities in
report.
what do the authorities in Oklahoma tell you when you ask them to go get the kids?
They didn't want to do it. There's so much, when CPS is involved, it already incriminates a person no matter what. So
right.
you're already looked at as being some sort of abuser or something's just not right about you because you had this CPS involvement. So they didn't want to help, of course. But he told me, because we were still married at the time, and he told me that if I wanted to see them again, that I had to file the divorce. And so I did. And now we're in this battle. He's convicted of assault inflicting serious injury.
Was
The
that on you?
charge, yeah, on me. The charge was in the presence of minors. He punched me in my face, knocked my 4 bottom teeth from the bone, knocked
This
me
should not even be a
unconscious.
question of
Right.
custody. There should not even.
He knocked me out. He knocked me unconscious. And, I had to get surgery, go to a
Oh my
shelter, all
God.
this. That part is a long story of all of the things that he's done to me.
So
He has
you right
lots
now
of
are in a
charges.
custody battle with this guy, and he actually has custody of the kids.
And he
Yeah.
has convictions of
Even though he has
domestic
convictions.
abuse.
He has absconded probation in North Carolina on this charge. He has a warrant in North Carolina. His probation officer has said she's not going to reinstate the probation and he's going to jail. And they have given my children to him.
Now,
has
what about
full soul-
Oklahoma won't do anything on the probation violation either?
North Carolina would have to extradite him, and they're not extraditing him. And so they've given him full soul, physical and legal, given
Oh
me
my.
2 hours per week supervised by
What
him.
is the
And
what's
I have
the
him?
and I have
You
a
have to
restraining
have
order.
you have to have your supervised visits by the guy who beat you.
Yeah, and I have a
Wow.
restraining order against him.
what is the
and they
justification?
won't modify it. They won't
what's the
modify the order.
What's the justification? Do you know what did they say? Why?
I guess it comes to they're saying I'm unstable and lots of lies. They said I don't follow court orders.
Okay.
And lots of lies.
Right.
Yeah, there's lots of lies that they
Who's
told.
the
But
judge
they said,
that made this decision, Alicia? What's the judge's name?
her name is Susan Worthington, and
this is a judge in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, and it's basically his attorney. She and his attorney, I found records of them being on that judge's father's judicial campaign
Of
together.
course. Of
She
course.
was the treasurer, and that judge was the chairperson. So
Mm.
they're
And she
friends.
didn't recuse herself, obviously.
She can't. She comes in on Wednesdays and does temporary orders hearing from
Mhm.
another county. So you can't recuse her because she's not even on the case. She's just a
Right.
temporary orders judge.
Mhm.
And so, and then all the other judges in the courthouse say that they don't modify other judges' orders. Like they're not like regardless that I have a restraining order against him and he's the supervisor of my visitation, which should be a thing in itself to know that it needs to be modified. They're not even looking into the details of the case. They stand on that they don't modify other judges' temporary orders when the statute says a temporary order can be modified, you know? And so there's this allegiance
As
that
can
they
a final
have.
order. As can a
Right.
final order. Okay, I think we're running out of time.
Yeah,
You
we're out
wanna-
of time.
You
We're
want,
over.
you want to
So
conclude? What do you want? What else do you want to say about your case?
Yeah, so I filed a writ of mandamus because Oklahoma has very awesome domestic violence laws. So there's like they do not allow abusers to have custody of children as per their
Except in your
statute.
case.
Right, exactly. So I filed a writ of mandamus in order for them to follow the law. You know, they don't get to use judicial discretion when there's a law in place.
Mhm.
And so that's where we are. I just did
when's
the
that going to be heard?
I just filed the jurisdiction on Friday. So once they receive that, or not Friday, Monday. So once they receive that, the judge has to answer to my
Mhm.
brief, which I think
Wonderful.
is very comprehensive.
Alicia, would you send that to me? I'll get you my email address. I'd like to see your writ of mandamus.
Okay.
And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that very much. And I'm sorry that this has been such a disaster in your case, but hopefully there'll be some more attention on it. And hopefully your writ of mandamus will do what you want it to do.
Thank
So
you.
thanks
Yes.
for being
You
here.
know, we've been here for 10 months thinking we were going to be here for 2 days, you know, and so we're really like struggling to an extent. Like we've used all of our savings and we really like we just live in this single wide trailer and they just drag it out as long as they want. I didn't get to talk about his attorney and her part and how she used to be the bar president and nobody goes against her and all this, but
Mhm.
yeah, so definitely if anyone's watching, we definitely need support. You know, share our story and you can find me at the Mother Earth on Instagram. So it's
Okay,
simple,
great.
the Mother Earth.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Alicia.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, are you
Alrighty.
still going to be back next week?
Yeah, I think so. I'll be here next week. So I have Stop CPS organization will be with us next week. I think I haven't got a
Mhm.
a
By the way,
confirmation, but I'm pretty sure.
we just keep finding more of the bad rotten apples among the cops. We just keep finding them, but I'm sure that still just a few more rotten apples to go and we'll find all of them.
Before we go, I do want to bring to your attention an article that I wrote last night because I am paying attention to all types of judicial abuse. And I don't know if you know about the January 6th riot detainees. They are being treated in a horrific way. And some letters got out. Family members have been writing to members of Congress. One of the prisoners wrote a letter that was posted to Twitter, and it talked about all the terrible conditions inside the jail, including extreme medical neglect, mental and physical abuse, unlivable conditions, dirty water, and starvation. And then a judge found in another case of another J6 prisoner that his civil rights had been violated because he had a broken wrist that needed surgery. That was Christopher Worrell, and they neglected his wrist injury, and she called for a full investigation. Well, then a surprise inspection happened at the DC jail, and they found all of the things that the letter said were there: denial of food and water, evidence of systemic mistreatment of detainees, human waste, standing sewage, disgusting food. And guess what? They're transferring out 400 prisoners to a different facility, but none of them will be January 6th detainees.
Right, and we talked about, I don't remember if it was last week, I think a couple of weeks ago, Marty Gottesfeld, who is in jail not for hacking, but He, in response to the Justina Pelletier case, and he is actually essentially a journalist trying to be a journalist out of jail, and he has done a lot of work on the prison conditions that he's in, and that's called the Communications Management Unit. And these things don't get covered a lot because most people don't care how a prisoner is treated, but the mistreatment of federal prisoners and state prisoners.
And these aren't even, first of all, wait a minute, these are detainees. They haven't had their trial yet.
Correct.
These are innocent men until proven guilty, and they are being kept in conditions that are absolutely disgusting. And now it's a fact, but they're not going to move them. They moved other people from the jail, but not the defendants who brought forward the charges of these disgusting conditions. Wow.
Right.
I'm floored by this. Our government is determined to make an example out of those people who participated in the January 6th riots, and they're going to go to all lengths to make sure that they pay. And I'm sorry, but there isn't one person in that entire bunch that has been charged with treason. The charges range from disorderly conduct to trespassing.
Some of them are more serious, but none are treason.
None are treason. None are
any
terrorism.
Of the stuff that people claim.
No, that's right.
About it.
The actual charges do not reflect what is being shared in the media, and we have looked at those charges, and we cannot find any that are for treason or terrorism. Some are being charged with assault. Some are being charged, which again comes with a very, if any, jail time. Mostly these charges should come with probation.
Some of them have done very serious in terms of crimes, criminal things, but not treason. I don't remember what do they call it? Whatever they're calling it, none of them have been charged with that. You're right, but the treatment of prisoners
is in there on a nonviolent charge. He's in there for trespassing. It's absolutely outrageous that in the age of, you can't hold anybody on because of bail reform, that these guys are sitting in he's been in jail now for 90 days in these conditions for trespassing. That's outrageous.
And let me repeat, Marty Gottesfeld took internet traffic, put a bunch of it to the Boston Children's Hospital website, crashing it. He's in jail for, I think, 10 years. And you do 85% in federal jail. 10 years for taking a bunch of internet traffic and putting it to a website to crash it. And so he's going to do, I think he was put in jail first in 2016. He'll be there until 2024 for that stunt or whatever you want to call it. And he was also made an example of, for sure. No doubt. And I think it's because of the target. I think it was the target. Boston Children's Hospital is very powerful. They had powerful friends to make sure that he got the maximum. And he's been mistreated. As he wrote in his letter, he's being sexually assaulted.
Good God. All right. Well, we'll be back next week with more. Thank you for tuning in. And Mike, have a great rest of your week. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Take care.